And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. And there it is, people. We have got a Springbok team for this weekend. The first Springbok team of the year. And Rassie Erasmus is not messing around. It is absolutely stacked. But for me, it's a really good balance of giving a few people opportunities in key positions, as well as bringing a few experienced players back, as well as giving players who haven't played in a while a bit of a run out to get back to full fitness. Because at the end of the day, we can't be so sort of stuck in about the fact that we have to find, blood new players and the likes of that we don't continue building our best sort of side and ensuring that we are always getting the type of results we want whilst we sort of are in this process of figuring out a side to take, or a squad rather, to take over to Australia and to hopefully win the World Cup for the third time in a row. So very, very exciting mix of players. And I've got a poll running in the comments saying, do you like the Springbok team? And that's pretty simple, to be honest. That is all I'm asking. It's a simple yes, no question, really. And there's always people that don't like it. Literally, as I say that, there's a vote that comes and says no. If you don't like it, why not? What are we saying? Get your thoughts into the chat at the moment. Let's get through this. Let's break it down a little bit, because Rassie Erasmus has also given us his comments on it as well and kind of explain some of the selections and the likes of that. And, also I've just done a video on the Barbarian squad, which was announced literally the last sort of hour and a half of it. And it's a good Barbarian side. Yes, maybe some of them aren't playing consistently international rugby, for example. Some of them not quite making squad, but I don't think you get much stronger. And I still think that it could be better than some international teams you might even play this year. But the big thing about the Boks is that they said yesterday they are treating this like a test match. That is a test match team. You know, you name that side against an Italy, you name that side against a Scotland, for example, you wouldn't be particularly surprised. To be honest, there wouldn't be that many changes, I don't think. If you were to name a side against the All Blacks, you'd probably change locks, changing the loose trio, maybe a tight head change. That backline wouldn't change much. Maybe one or two players would change. You know, you'd probably change the scrum off, you'd probably change the fullback if you're playing against New Zealand, for example. So it is very much a first-team feel about it, despite the fact that there are a couple of new faces. There are 4 uncapped players. And proud moment for me to see some Lions players in there. Really cool to see Vincent Tshituka, somebody who I interviewed long before he even left the Lions, and had a chat with him about it and sort of his ambitions and stuff like that. So to see him in the green and gold, you kind of get quite like a little sense of pride in the fact that you have spoken to him before and you know what it means to him, and now you get to see that sort of him achieve his dream. Well, it's the first step towards achieving his dream. He'll run out in the green and gold. It won't be an official cap, but he'll still run out this weekend. So before I sort of break every single little sort of selection down, please do smash like on the video. Let's try and see if we can get up to sort of 50 likes, 60 likes. So if you like the team, hit the like on the video. And if you don't like the team, well, hit the like anyway. But let me know why you don't like the team. Let me know what are your thoughts. If you don't like certain selections, what would you change? What combinations do you like? What combinations don't you like? Let me know. It's supposed to be an interactive show, so I want to know what you guys think, as much as me sort of giving my opinion. Let's break it down, though, shall we? So in the front row, Oxen Chair, Malcolm Marx, all the experience in the world. You've got over 100 caps. Malcolm Marx has 76 caps. Oxen Chair, 39 caps. Could get to 50 this year if he plays enough games. And then you've got the uncapped Asanate and Tlabakanye. And I tell you what, he's probably one of the players I am the most excited about for this weekend, because tight head is a problem for the Boks with regards to current injuries, with regards to sort of phasing the next generation, because our 3 traditional tight heads are all getting on in years. Francois Herber, long-term injury. Trevor Nyakane, long-term injury. Vincent Koch, not getting any younger. Still around, still very good, still more than good enough to make the Springbok side, but not getting any younger. So now we're sort of seeing a new generation having to come through. Thomas du Toit, Wilco Louw, Neethling Fassi, and Asanate in Tlabakanye. Now, I think that tomorrow, if we were to play the All Blacks, Wilco Louw should start. And I think Thomas du Toit would have a very good chance of making the bench. I think him and Vincent Koch at the moment. Thomas du Toit once again back-to-back sort of Premiership Team of the Season inclusions at tight head. But I think that Asanate Tlabakanye is a huge, huge player for the future. First of all, he's an absolute giant of a man. And he's very mobile for somebody his size. So he's a very good scrummager. He gets around the park, very good defensively. And, for me, he's just always sort of screams Springbok. And he has had to trim down a little bit. He came in at very, very, very heavy. And, that sort of, when you get to the top level of the game, it is a bit faster. So he has trimmed down. But for me, he's the most exciting player we've included, because I think that if he can get things right, that is a good tight end for the next 10 years. He's a young player. Certainly the youngest tight end by quite some margin. You've then got Jean-Claude and Louis de Jager back in the mix in the lock pairing, and really good to see those two back in the mix. First of all, I think, Jean-Claude, for me in particular, is the closest we've got to an Ebenezer alternative. We've lacked depth in the number 4 jersey. We saw that last year. Salmarat is getting opportunities, but he hasn't always taken them as much as we'd like him to. And people even sort of asking questions how he continues to make the box squad. And I think the reality is we haven't had lots of 4 options, in the last 10 years, aside from Ibn Etzebeth. Thankfully, we haven't had to, because we're talking about a player who's the most capped Bok of all time. But Jean-Claude, when we switched that allegiance, was a huge acquisition. And I say acquisition really because he was an Irish player playing in Munster, and then he requalified and we brought him back. Huge player to bring back, because he is test match quality. I don't understand how he was. I mean, look, the Irish locks are great. He should be, for me, involved in that squad. He should have been going to the World Cup, and they've got great locks. Ty Burns, phenomenal. Joe McCarthy is really good. Your James Ryan's a really good player, and Ian Henderson's a really good player. I think Jean-Claude's as good as any of them, to be honest. And their loss was our gain. Maybe suits our style of rugby a bit more. Quite confrontational, quite big and likes the physical part of the game. But he's just played 7 caps for the Boks. I mean, how amazing! He's a World Cup winner. He actually played in the World Cup final, and he's played just 7 times for the Springboks. But Louis de Jager being back, 66 caps, so good to see him back. I think even if he doesn't make the next World Cup, it was going to be heartbreaking if he was going to sort of end his Springbok career by not sort of having played even before the World Cup. But like Steven Kitshoff, I don't feel like we ever managed to give Steven Kitshoff the send-off he deserved. So it's really cool to see Louis de Jager come back into the squad and be involved. And I tell you what, if we get it right with him, I think he could potentially make another World Cup. Then we've got our loose trio. Now, Kolisi is the experienced amongst their 92 caps, by the way. So everybody sort of not quite noticed. We've been so sort of fixated on the fact that Villy Leroux's going to get to 100 caps this year. Kolisi set to become a Springbok Centurion this year as well. Very much closing in on that. Damian de Allende also, probably in the next year or two, should reach that 100 Springbok caps as well. And he's the experience amongst the players who've not been around as much. Jean-Luc du Preez has got 14 caps to his name, but has not played in quite a while for the Boks. And he's a player that often gets called into the squad. And as when his injuries, for example, or alignment camps, doesn't seem to make it onto the park. And I was actually trying to find earlier when the last time he actually played for the Boks, but my guess would have been sort of 2017-18. If I had to hazard a guess, I don't think he's played official test cap post 2019. I could be wrong on that, and I was trying to find out. But also, I think what's amazing is we get how young he is. He hasn't had 30 yet. So here we go. The last time he played for South Africa, hey man, don't come here with ads. Is when did he play an official test? Did he play last year? Oh, actually, I lied. He came off the bench last year. So he played 1 game, but he's been in a role. And before that, the last time he played for South Africa was 17-18. So 1 test in the last 7 years for a player who's just 29 years old. So I think he's going to be a big part of the Boks to come. The big thing from him is that he can play everywhere. They've spoken about the fact that he can play in the number 8 jersey, in the number 7 jersey, in the number 6 jersey, and in the number 4 jersey, actually, to be honest, even in the number 5 if he has to. So he's a very versatile player. So I think it's really good to see him getting an opportunity there. Now, Vincent Tshituka, I mean, I'm personally biased because I've met him quite a few times and obviously came through the Lions system. But I tell you what, I think we've got someone who can generally, pick up the reins when Pieter-Steph du Toit moves on. No one's going to be the next Pieter-Steph du Toit, but Vincent Tshituka's got everything. First of all, he can play in the locks as well, so he's got that opportunity. But big ball carrier, hard work on defense, very, very fit around the park, big leader as well. Big game players. I think that's a big thing that I used to love watching about him. He's a big game player. He loves the big occasion. You know, he's a player that when you get to sort of finals, for example, he likes to take his sort of game up a notch. And that's something really, really good. And I think that we're now going to start seeing whether he's good enough at this rate to be able to contend with the best of them. And when he moved to the Sharks, I asked him, I said, you've gone to the Sharks, you were winning man of the match every day, every week type of thing for the Lions. Why move to the Sharks where you've got such big opportunity? And he said he wants to become a star amongst stars. That was his quote. Now he's in the test match arena. This is where he wants to thrive. That's the thing. He's a player that wants to go to test match rugby and still be considered one of the best. That's the kind of ambition he had. It wasn't just a case of he wants to be a 1 or 2 cap Bok. He wants to be a 30, 40, 50 cap Bok. And the Springbok ambition was always his ambition. He always wanted to play for the Springboks. Yes, wasn't born here, but he was raised here. He grew up watching the Boks, and this was always his ambition. So I think that we potentially got a big game in for him this weekend. I also think he actually just suits the game plan, and I think that the sooner you can align him, for example, given the fact that Peter Steph has got a few injuries, the more he becomes an option later on this year. So that pack for me will do very well. You know, yes, it's changed a lot from last year because Jean-Claude and Diago weren't around, but neither of them would look out of place in a first team. You know, so everybody's saying it's not necessarily an A team. Yes, you'd probably have Emirates, Franco Masters, your 2 starting locks. Luat Diago was a starting lock before his injury, for example, and Jean-Claude played in the World Cup final. So it's only Vincent, Tshituka, Jean-Luc du Preez, Asante Klabakanya, who for me are more sort of fringe players. I mean, Jean-Claude, I suppose you could consider a fringe player, but I don't think we've ever considered Luat Diago a fringe player. So it's a top pack, and I just don't see how any front row is going to be able to cope with Oxenche and Asante Klabakanya and then Malcolm Marx. I mean, it's going to be... I mean, that front row is over... I think it's over 400 kgs. Because Oxenche must be about 130, 120 odd. Asante Klabakanya is sitting at 140 odd. Malcolm Marx is 116, I think. So, yeah, literally, genuinely, I think that front row is over 400 kgs. We talk about having a ton scrum. Well, you've got 400 kgs and 3 players. It's just silly, you know. And having gone to the training, it's been very interesting. There's a bit of a bromance coming up between Oxenche and Asante and Klabakanya, and it'd be really cool. Here we go. So Oxenche, let's calculate this. I actually want to see how let's see how big this scrum is, shall we? So Oxenche is 122 kgs. Malcolm Marx is this is based on the Springbok website. So recently he's 117 kgs. So Asante Klabakanya is sitting at about 140 odd. He was at 150, so it's 145 kgs. Let's go to 142, for example. I think that's what he's kind of sort of down to. So that's 381 kgs so far. I don't know if we've got a Jean-Claude weight here. Oh, actually, I've got it all. Okay, wait. Give me 2 seconds. I've got this all the information here. So we'll teach it. Whilst I find it, we'll go through it. But I want to try to look at how big this potential pack is. Let's go to the comments whilst I bring all that information up, shall we? And some interesting comments being made over here. So we've got Aphelele earlier saying he is playing certain players to give them game time because they are fan favorites but won't start in big tests. And Aussie Man is saying this is a half A, half B team. Byron says, as you say, good mix of newer players, blooding some older players coming back from injury. Lovely stuff. Squad, that's what I want. I want the squad. We've then got Matthew says would have really liked me wanting to start, but absolutely love Sacha. So yeah. And Ashley saying was hoping to see Edward back. Yeah, I think he's one of the players I would have liked to have seen. I think we wouldn't have made us worse, for example. AT says too many changes at once. Worry about the forwards and mix. Well, this is an interesting thing. So yeah, we go. I'm just going to quickly calculate the weight of this front row, shall we? Oxenche and Asante and Klabakanya. There we go. Here we go. So Oxenche 120 kgs. Asante and Klabakanya 145 odd. Malcolm Marx at 117. Jean-Claude, where are you? Jean-Claude at Okay, I don't actually have his weight. I'll do a video bit on how big that front row that pack is going to be, but it'll be a big pack. So I think we'll be well over 900 kgs, for example. Matthew says, could Vincent become a Springbok captain? He has the leadership. Well, yeah, I don't see why not, to be honest. I think he'd be a good option for Sharks captain. And again, he loves the big occasion, so maybe one day he would be. Albert says, we need to be realistic that there is a very big chance the Boks could lose this game just because it's so unfamiliar team selection. Boks should win. Well, to be fair, I suppose, and that's what I actually want to speak about. So what's very important about, especially this following 15, these guys have all been in camp for 3 weeks. And they've been playing games against each other, by the way, internal games, squad games, the likes of that. That's why they had such a big squad. So that's why they've got 55 players, because they wanted to have at least sort of 35 to 40 players in camp to be able to play full-on games against each other, and they've been doing it. And they've been talking about the fact that from a physicality point of view, they've been pushed a lot harder than some of the games even are. So there are concerns. So on the face of it, for example, we're looking at players that haven't played together, and they haven't played together in an official match, but they've been training a lot together as a combination. So these players have got to know each other. So I'm hoping that, in theory, we should be a lot more aligned than the Barbarians are, for example, given the fact that they're meeting each other now in the hotel. And yes, before yesterday, a lot of them wouldn't have met at all. And now they're in the side together. So, yeah, in theory, I'm hoping we should be a bit more aligned than them. Eugene says, would have loved to see Ethan Hooker in the green and gold. Great team. Brandon saying, no issues. Is fair for the type of game, and conditions will be pretty terrible too. So, yeah, all good here. Man said, I wanted to see Ethan Hooker maybe in 23, but good team overall. And Spansberg SquarePants says, who are the Barbarian props? I think Man told you over there, it's Will Collier, Hassan Collier, Ken Healy, and Paul Alomele. Yeah, so they announced that a while ago. So I think Ken Healy's in for a long day if he does start, because he's going to have to go up against Asnate. Johnny says, solid team, Stevie. Happy to see Lewis and Sacha back. Is Gaz still on match ban? He is. This is his last game, so he will be able to return after this. And King Power says, genuinely happy to see this team. Was worried we'd see a boring team. Do you think Rassie has not included Arendse Julius because he's already set with de Allende, Kriel, and Estes until the next Rugby World Cup? I think it's a bit of a shootout between Arendse Julius and Henk van Wyk, who will sort of move into that number 13 spot ahead of potentially. So you spoke about de Allende, Kriel, Esterhuizen. Ethan Hooker is viewed as a 13 option by Rassie Erasmus. That's what he said. He said we view him as more of a 13. He's been playing wing, but we see him more as a 13. So that's an interesting option, because we always talk about Arendse Julius, Henk van Wyk, maybe Kane and Moody shifting to outside centre. And the Boks actually sitting there going, well, we think Ethan Hooker actually is potentially our 13 option. JJ said, I think it's an excellent 23-man squad, well balanced in terms of all aspects, especially experience-wise. Well, 93% of people are saying they like it, which we don't often get. So if you do like the team, smash like on the video and vote yes. And if you don't like the team, I said, keep giving me. Not too many people. People have named a couple people there who would have liked to see. But I don't think too many people have said who they don't want to see. I mean, is there anybody here that everybody's like, oh, why is he playing? I don't think there is, which is always a good sign, to be brutally honest. So let's go into the back. So, I mean, I just spoke about the forwards so far. Let's go into the backs, which is more or less, as the Crow Tips said, hello, Chris. It's pretty much your best backline, bar maybe 9 and 15. Question marks about whether those be the start. But I do think Sash more or less on up first choice number 10. It's a big game for Morne van den Berg, and I'm really upset about the fact that it is set to be wet, because last year he started in Australia in horrible conditions, some of the worst conditions you probably played Test rugby in, and he struggled a little bit, but I think he also struggled in a game where everybody struggled because it was so difficult. And now he's getting another opportunity in a very good side, and it's going to be wet once again. So Morne van den Berg is a player that gets name dropped a lot by the Boks, especially by Zondila Stick. He's spoken a lot about, he says we see him as the next sort of Faf de Klerk. We see a lot of Faf de Klerk in him. So he's a player that's very highly rated by the Boks, and they very much see him in the long-term future. So him to start next to Sacha, for example, Grant Williams often used off the bench. We're now potentially looking at, could this be our new starting pairing? Could this be our sort of halfback pair for the next couple of years? Could that potentially be our World Cup halfback pairing? And I think Morne van den Berg's got everything he needs. He's maybe he didn't have his best game in that test he started, but again, he's gone back to the Lions and he's been one of our best players, and very exciting player, and does the basics well as well. So I'm very excited to see how those two go as a combination. Sacha back at the wheel. Missed out on the end of year tour due to injury, but back in the mix. Now it's a straight shootout between him, Andre, and Morne for number one spot. It really is. Good to see Morne on the bench in front of his home crowd in Cape Town. It'll be a nice way to sort of sign off because he is moving on from the Stormers. So this could be the last opportunity they see of him in the green and gold unless he plays against Australia in August. But that's a really nice sort of a full circle moment for him to potentially bid farewell to the old Newlands faithful, the now DHL Stadium faithful in the green and gold jersey. And Fassi at fullback, no Damian Willemse, as mentioned, he is banned, so he was not an option. I do still think he comes back in. I think he'll start against Italy. I think Fassi had a great season last year. I think he really stood up. I think we finally saw that player Fassi we've been waiting for at Springbok level. I still think that Damian Willemse is our number 115. To be honest, I just think he's got... Well, I think you go back to the World Cup, and he was probably in our top 5 most important players and best players in the World Cup. And one season of injuries doesn't suddenly mean he's not there, because we started to see the Damian Willemse of old during the URC, and I think we'll see him in the Bok jersey as well. But it's a big opportunity with him being banned for Aphelele Fassi to just remind him that, hey, listen, this is not going to be easy for you. Yes, you think you're number one, but I'm going to sit here. I'm going to make sure that you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to take this jersey off me, quite physically. But for me, and then the rest of the back line, Kurtley Arendse, Damian de Allende, Kriel, Cheslin Kolbe, it's the Japanese back line. They're all based in Japan. They all need game time. So that's probably the thinking there. You could have gone Ethan Hooker. Could have gone Edel van der Merwe. I think we'll see both of them against Georgia. I think Edward will start. I think that he's somebody, especially who last week I don't think Kurtley Arendse actually probably had his best season last year, which is saying a lot because he still scored some tries. But there were moments we suddenly went, but again, it kind of happens. It happened to Canon Moody as well. You come through and you're like this hot prospect, and he took to Test rugby like a duck to water. It was incredibly how easy it was. And then people start studying a bit more. So I do think Edel van der Merwe is the perfect type of player to put pressure on a Cheslin Kolbe and a Kurtley Arendse. They're actually not that much difference from an age point of view, to be perfectly honest, between those guys. Because Cheslin Kolbe is going to be 33 at the next World Cup. Kurtley Arendse is going to be 31 at the next World Cup. And Edel van der Merwe will also be 31 at the next World Cup. So our little scrum cap brigade are going to hopefully push each other quite a lot. The big one over there that's trying to fight to stay in there is Maxwell Mapimpi. He'll be 37 in the next World Cup. We probably won't see him there, but those three very much are the big ones. So John Pele saying, Stevie, I don't think Fassi is the correct selection to start. The Barbarians will know how to run the lot. He'll be good with the high ball. I'm not sure if he meant did or don't, but he's definitely going. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. And that's the funny thing about Barbarians. They'll look at individual things. They'll say, right, let's just have a go. How do we try and expose this one player and try and expose this small thing? I think that the analysis from a Barbarians perspective is so much fun because you spend your entire time trying to find little small things you can try and expose in a team. And if you do expose them, all the other teams suddenly go, oh, hang on, we could do that as well. Jacques Kirsten says, money on Tlabakanya absolutely smoking someone on Sunday. There are like two things that are almost always guaranteed when you watch the Lions. Well, three things. The third being Steve losing his mind about some stupid little soft moment we have. But that is always, you watch the Lions rugby for two things. To see Ruan Fenter sit somebody down with ball in hand, and to see Asanate absolutely hammer somebody in defense. And he does. I mean, he's gotten a red card once for it, which I do think was a bit unlucky. But I tell you what, when you can move 145 kgs forward at a reasonable pace, you're never going to push him back, are you? It's very simple. It's just pure physics. I mean, he's got like 30 kgs on your RD Severes. You know, he's got 30 kgs on your PSTF the Toys. I mean, he's got 25 kgs on Evan Etzebeth. You know, he's got 7 kgs on Francois Herbert. So he's an absolute behemoth. And he moves that body around. And yeah, good luck trying to get past. If you run into him, you don't get past him. So yeah, I think for me, more than I like to look at the backline, I want to look at that bench, because now also we're seeing players, fringe players, and genuine fringe players. Now, I think Morne van der Merwe is a great inclusion in the squad. He's been brilliant for the Scarlets, and Bongi Manambi, I think, will know that, you know, he's nice. You know, I think Malcolm Marx and Bongi Manambi have for many years not had a competition. Let's call a spade a spade. Joseph Weber never really managed to step up. We've had Andre Hugo Venter come in. We've had Jan Grobler come in. And there's been competition for who the third hooker is. But they've never pushed Bongi Manami and Malcolm Marx and to a point where we're thinking that either of those two wouldn't be involved. I think Marnus van der Merwe can do that. I think he can push them and say, you guys drop off a little bit, I'm here. He's had a brilliant URC. He's been really good for the Scarlets. He's got a good age profile now at 28 years old. He'll be 30 in the next World Cup. So he's a really good profile as well. And he's got the jump on the likes of Jan Grobler and Andre Hugo Venter, Joseph Weber. And I think that this weekend it will be an opportunity for him to show what he's all about, because Marx is going to be 33 at the next World Cup and Bongi Manami is going to be 36 at the next World Cup. So if there's any issue with Bongi Manami, I think Marnus van der Merwe becomes your sort of next best option. Jan Hendrik Wessels, the only Bulls player included, and that's probably more given the fact there's a bit of an injury crisis, because from a loose head point of view, we don't have Tshituka, he's injured. We don't have Gerard Steenekamp, he's injured. We don't have Thomas Toy, or he only arrived this week as Thomas Toy, and Bowen Venter will only arrive next week, Monday. So we've only actually got two loose options. So that's Oxen Chair and Jan Hendrik Wessels. So he had to be included. But apart from that, there are no other Bulls players because they haven't been around the squad. And which I think is a good thing. I think, as I said, this team's been training together as a squad for the last 2 or 3 weeks, really. So their third week together, officially on the field. So that's kind of the big thing. They've been training. They've been working with these combos for a while. So those two, I think, were pretty easy picks. Then Netlin Mashir, again, could have gone Vincent Koch. That's the safe selection. But we've got to grow our tight head stocks, because you look at our tight heads, and that was it was immediately a very interesting position, because we named no fewer than 6 tight heads in our different alignment camps compared to our 4 loose heads. Yes, you've got a swing prop in Thomas Toy and Trevor Nyakane, but they're more primarily tight heads. But tight head, as I mentioned, is an issue with lots of injuries at the moment. So, there's no Thomas Toy only arriving this week. Vincent Koch's an option. He's 37 in the next World Cup. Trevor Nyakane is 38. Frans Malherbe is 36 rather. Now you've got Thomas Toy, Volkolo, Asnate Klabakanye, and Netlin Mashir. You look at those age profiles. Thomas Toy is 32 at the next World Cup. Volkolo is 33 at the next World Cup. Netlin Mashir is 34 at the next World Cup. Asnate Klabakanye is 28. So you've got 3 players in similar age profiles and a younger player. And Asnate, again, you make your test debut at 26 years old. You could play for 10 years. He could go on and easily play 50, 60 test caps. And I think he will if he gets to grips early on with test match rugby. Then you've got Franco Marston and Kwaka Smith. Again, game time, based in Japan, haven't played in a while. Kubus Reinach, very interested to see that he's been back. I'm not entirely sure if Grant Williams is fully fit. I'd be surprised if he is fully fit and not playing, but he is coming back from injury. He's been training. We haven't seen any sort of issues with him from there, and he wasn't involved in any sort of conversation about potential injury players, but that's maybe probably the only, for me, surprising selection, not to have a Grant Williams. But again, they've probably mapped out the Italian team, and he's probably involved in that 23 if he is fit. Then Morne Liebach and Andre Esterhuizen. So you got an opportunity to give Andre Esterhuizen a run out. Other players you could have looked at would have been potentially Ethan Hooker, but again, we mustn't be so focused on the fact that Ethan Hooker's never got any sort of caps, that we now don't give Andre Esterhuizen an opportunity, who should have a lot more than the... How many caps he got? Not many. 19. Andre Esterhuizen played for another nation. He could have 50 caps to his name already. So I don't mind that selection at all. So I think that the bench is really exciting. I think the front row is exciting. The rest of them, we kind of know what they're about. And that's the nice thing about sort of how interesting this 23 is. The 2 front rows are very exciting. And players coming back like a Jean-Claude Lourdes-Diaga, opportunity for them to prove that they're still good enough at this level. Even a Franco Mostert, for example, is had that injury last year and will want to be able to see exactly what he's all about. But he's just got that diesel engine that's just going to keep ticking for a long time. So I think the big sort of players who are unlucky, or rather interesting to see where they stand, is no Faf de Klerk's an interesting one. No Grant Williams is an interesting one. Obviously, you can only have 2 scrum halves, but it's interesting to go to these 2 scrum halves themselves. No Evan Roos is interesting. Jasper Wiese, not entirely sure if he's fully fit. They also mentioned that he's somebody who's coming back from fitness, so I was surprised he's on the bench. Also Japan based and didn't play towards the end of the season, so he would have been a nice opportunity to give him some game time. So that's maybe a bit of a surprise. No Marco van Staden, although to be honest, yeah, I think if Cameron Hanekom gets fit, I think we can make him a number 6 that could genuinely push Siya Kolisi, which we haven't really had. So front pioneer says, why don't people like MVB? Johnny Pillay said, glad to see Vincent Tshituka alive. He's been fantastic in the URC. Sia earlier was saying, I think it's sink or swim for Lewitt. If he has an average game, I don't see him continuing with that. Just too many long injuries. And Loazi's just saying, now, to be honest, I truly believe that Horn is currently the best fullback in SA. He's a natural line breaker, much like Israel Dag or Will Jordan. He also has a powerful long boot similar to James Lowe. I was very surprised when he was let go because we know that Willie LaRue is not going to be around for much longer. So I was surprised with let go because I think that I agree. I think he's been the form 15 in the URC level. But obviously, you can only have so many fullbacks. But I would like to see him involved. I think he's very much on the fringe. I think he's got a lot to offer. More than just a Lions fan. I think he's really, really good. And just to close up, JGS says, let's accept that there are many players who are hugely deserve to be in a box 23-man squad, but Rusty could only select 23 for this game. I have no doubt we're going to see many more others. And Marcel saying, I'm not judging Rusty, knows what he's doing. Can't wait for Saturday. Right, we're going to wrap up there, people. We've got some Barbarians training footage, by the way, coming to you in very shortly. We've got, obviously, the team announcement. We're going to have the Rassie Erasmus press conference coming up as well today, so we can kind of explain his selections. My guess is that it'll be joined by Asanate and Clive Kanye, or Vincent Tshituka will be one of those two. Will be my guess. Will be next to him on the top table, which will be quite cool to hear what they have to say. And also potentially some Springbok training content coming your way as well. Please do smash a like on the way out. If you're new, please do subscribe to the channel. On the road to 90,000 subscribers, getting on to quite close, hoping to get there by the end of the Rugby Championship. So please do show your support. And we're going to have all that kind of content throughout the week. Also, one big final, well, not one final call, but a big call at the moment. If you would like the chance to win Springbok tickets, make sure you consider joining the Members Club. We are doing a Members Club only giveaway for the Springbok tickets, and it means that your chances of winning are very, very good. And hopefully you guys will get involved in that. Join the Members Club. It's a very small nominal amount, but it really helps us get going. Things like getting down to Berg, to Cape Town, to Bambela, to cover all these games for you guys, to make sure you guys get to see all the different content. So consider becoming a member because you can win tickets to the box. And apart from that, we'll see you guys all soon.